Hello, my name is Tony and welcome to the final part of this series, Hunt the Alien. Now, if you were to look at a series of stone objects, you would see them getting finer and more specific and much more delicately made. Then all of a sudden, a copper tool will suddenly appear, and at the same time, you normally see the appearance of a new culture, a new civilization. And often there were legends associated with this about how it was that the gods or superhumans passed on this knowledge. Now, if aliens had landed on this planet, it would have made a very big impact on the locals, and they would have left a record of it in their paintings or in their stonework. And this is an attempt, not a too serious attempt, but it's an attempt to see if we can find any traces of such a thing ever happening. I hope you find this interesting.
From the neck down, this clay figure from about 4000 to 4500 BC from Venice in Serbia looks human. It appears to be sitting on a chair, and the chair is decorated with zigzag patterns. Looking at the body, the figure is wearing a coat of some sort that leaves his or her torso exposed, perhaps showing someone with a very narrow trunk. From the neck up, this figure is definitely not human. Seen from the front, the head is clearly triangular with a long, pronounced nose. If we now compare a bone figure in the early Egyptian gallery from Matmar, about 4000 to 3600 BC, we can see the same triangular face, thin waist, and in the same display there are bone markings similar to the markings of our possible interplanetary travellers' markings. Could these figures be representations of the same visitor? In the same cabinet, there are carvings of slim female figures. Up until then, most females were shown as very large, showing the kind of thighs that women often get after giving birth to many children. Could the interplanetary visitors have introduced a different set of values, seeing ladies as holders of qualities, as can be seen in the posture? Looking sideways at the head, the face is designed to point upwards. The profile is gently curved. In the South American galleries, there are carvings of people that look like their heads have been taken off and put back on, with their faces pointing upwards. While we're here, it's worth wondering about the various weapons and communication devices some of the gods have got. What kind of technology would that indicate? The locals seem to think that blood and fire were in some way involved. Could this have introduced a warp in the development of future civilizations in South America with its passions for human sacrifice? In the Greek Cycladic rooms, you can see the same curvature of face and extended nose as our friend from Serbia. There is not much in these rooms, but these figures were buried with the Cycladians. Grave goods can be informative, for they sometimes give indications of where the deceased wanted to go in their next life. So could the Cycladians have wanted to live their next life on the home planet of the Serbian visitor? There is one problem with the Serbian figure. It does not have much of a brain. If we were looking for interplanetary visitors, it would be reasonable to expect them to be more evolved. The next logical evolutionary step for species developing along the line of intelligence would be a bigger brain, and therefore a bigger head. However, looking at the back of the head, we can see 3 holes where an extended head could have been attached, but over the last 6,000 years is now lost. So we cannot be too quick to discount this example on the grounds of having a small head. Going to Mesopotamia, 6000 to 1500 BC, there are clay figures with faces on the tops of their heads, slim bodies, extended heads, odd-looking eyes that can be seen in burial pots around the world, with babies that also show extended heads, very similar to the South American galleries. This is important because whilst the immortal sages of ancient China do show advanced head development, they were not able to establish this development as an heretic feature for the human race. So if there is a figure of a child with a head development, it could not be human. So its mother probably wasn't human either. Taking another track, looking in the gallery of the living and the dying, there are masks showing strong Egyptian features. Note the eyeshadow connecting the eyes to the temple, and the similarity with the white crown of Egypt. No one knows how old these images are. They could be many thousands of years old, kept alive by having ceremonies extended over 15-year cycles. Egypt and Papua New Guinea are almost on opposite sides of the world, and Papua New Guinea has been isolated for most of its history. So how and why are there similarities in their artwork? This is not meant to prove anything, but it does show you cannot dismiss the possibility either. And looking at world history, there are three major strands to consider. 1. The natural development of human growth. 2. Extra permission to perceive in the style of the video on creation and the human. 3. What was added by interplanetary visitors. When considering the third strand, there is a question of experimentation that sources like the Bible hint at in Genesis chapter 6. From time to time, there are races that explode onto the scene, like the Vikings. Could they have had their genes altered slightly? Then there is the question of how truly human are we, and what that would mean should a person decide that they want to behave in a true human way. If different visitors came here, could they have different motives? Just suppose that at the time of King Arthur, Stonehenge was being used as a landing site for interplanetary slavers, and King Arthur went on a quest to find the Holy Grail and stop these slavers. Then it makes it very interesting that a burial pot showing bug eyes was found in Bedfordshire, dated about 500 AD, because this puts it in Arthur's times. So the third strand of world history, interplanetary interference, does make understanding world history more complicated, but it cannot be ignored if we want to come to a fuller understanding of how we ended up being the kind of people that we are today.